Welcome, everyone, to this explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most wild mysteries in modern football. It's the enigma of Mikael Olise. We're talking about a guy with pure, explosive, world-class talent who just completely refuses to celebrate. It really brings up the ultimate question, or, paying homage to his French roots, pourquoi Mikael Olise reste impassive? Why on earth does he remain so stone-cold impassive? Let's decode this.
Okay, so picture the scene, right? It's the 90th minute against Manchester United. He lines up and hits this absolutely unbelievable bending free kick that just smashes in off the crossbar. The keeper is completely stranded. It's an easy contender for, actually scratch that, it's arguably the Premier League goal of the year. Literally any other player on the planet would absolutely lose their mind. But Olise, he just kind of raises a hand, turns around with this completely blank face, an empty stare, and jogs back like he just completed a 5-yard pass in a Tuesday training drill.
The contrast is it's absolutely staggering. You've got his teammates exploding with joy, screaming with the fans, the bench is in total delirium, and he just seems to exist in this state of complete and utter indifference. Honestly, he goes as far as quietly playing chess on his phone in the locker room while everyone else is going crazy celebrating a massive win. It's this surreal world where absurd world-class goals just coexist with total silence. But where does this ice-cold demeanor actually come from?
Well, to really understand it, we have to look back at his journey. Born in Hammersmith to a Nigerian father and a Franco-Algerian mother, he was always that quiet kid, the one who observed before he acted. By age 7, he's already at Arsenal. A scout, Sean Conlon, spots him and makes a massive claim, saying he is the best talent in the country. By 9, he joins Chelsea's prestigious academy. Everything is looking absolutely perfect. But then, boom. At 14 years old, the shock hits. He gets entirely expelled from Chelsea, which is crazy, especially considering his younger brother Richard is actually allowed to stay.
So what exactly went wrong there? Well, there were two massive misunderstandings at Chelsea that his coaches just didn't know how to handle. First off, he was so naturally gifted that he didn't really see the point in forcing things, When everything comes that easy, why sweat? But the second, and honestly much deeper issue, was an extreme paralyzing shyness. He wouldn't say hello, he'd ignore people. But not out of malice. It was just because he simply didn't know how to fit into that group dynamic. And tragically, this extreme introversion was completely misread by his coaches as pure arrogance.
And man, this is where the free fall really begins. After getting expelled, he tries out for Manchester City. Rejected. He finds himself spending 6 long, agonizing months without a single club. 0 offers. None. Despite his obvious, undeniable talent, nobody wants him. He hits absolute rock bottom. It gets so bad that he literally has to rely on his former scout, Sean, mailing physical highlight DVDs in the post, just hoping, praying someone will give him a chance.
I want you to imagine the immense psychological toll of that. While his former Chelsea Academy peers, guys like Jamal Musiala, are starting to get these massive offers from European giants like Bayern Munich, Mikael is left waiting on the mail. The only club that finally responds to those DVDs is Reading, down in the English 2nd Division. The gap between him and his peers probably felt insurmountable at the time. And it's precisely in this dark, isolating period that his protective shell is really forged.
And this brilliantly illustrates how adversity forced him to evolve. At Reading, coach Mark Bowen quickly notices Olise's charming but, let's be honest, unacceptable street football nonchalance. So, he deploys a radical method. He demotes the young star to the under-23 team and forces him to play as a defensive midfielder. Yep. Not a winger, a defensive midfielder. Bowen wanted to cure him of that indifference, teaching him to press, win the ball back, and most importantly, learn how to suffer without the ball. And guess what? It works perfectly.
Olise absorbs the lesson completely. He learns how to eat defeat, how to show real grit, and how to run for his teammates. By the time he returns to the first team, he's completely reborn. He's named Scholar of the Year, signs his very first professional contract, and gets called up to the French U18 national team. This was his ultimate childhood dream. In fact, Gareth Southgate later tried to convince him to play for England, but Olise held firm. His heart was completely set on France.
This remarkable resurgence naturally draws a lot of attention. Crystal Palace steps in, dropping €9.3 million to bring him up to the Premier League. But his new manager, the absolute legend Patrick Vieira, is kind of skeptical of the hype. Facing this 19-year-old who has a bit of a reputation for being slightly bizarre, Vieira decides to test his mental resolve by leaving him on the bench for 5 long months. But Olise didn't crack, not at all. Instead, every single time he stepped on the pitch, he proved he was absolutely indispensable.
Now, what's really interesting about these numbers is how he answered Vieira's challenge with pure, undeniable stats. The minute he became a regular starter, his scoring efficiency just went through the roof. We're talking a goal or an assist every 52 minutes. That's insane. He became the first Palace player in years to hit 10 Premier League assists in a single season and the youngest scorer for the club since 1998. It was this mathematically undeniable rise to stardom, all achieved in total, complete silence.
Yet despite his exploding star power and all this massive media attention, his emotional walls remained totally intact. There's this one time a reporter asked him to describe one of his brilliant match-winning goals, and his response? Brutally, almost robotically minimalist. In a totally deadpan voice, he just says, "Well, pass me the ball, I shot, it went in, that's it." Even at the absolute summit of English football, he completely refused to play the media game.
Then, the summer of 2024 brings the ultimate turning point. Chelsea wants him back. Arsenal, Manchester United, Newcastle, they are all desperate for his signature. But it's European royalty, Bayern Munich, who secures him for a massive €60 million. Now, a lot of pundits severely doubted that a player from Crystal Palace, a guy who gives one-word answers in press conferences like he'd rather be literally anywhere else, could survive the pressure cooker of Germany's biggest club. While those doubts were obliterated instantly, his impact has been absolutely phenomenal. In his very first season in Germany, he racks up a record-breaking 40 direct goal contributions. He utterly dominates the playmaking metrics, creating nearly double the chances of Bundesliga superstar Florian Wirtz. He isn't just surviving at Bayern Munich. He is completely, undeniably running the shell.
Which brings us to perhaps the most hilarious visual of his career so far. Bayern wins the title, and Thomas Müller, who is just famous for his chaotic energy, decides to dump a massive beer shower right on Olise's head, specifically trying to force a reaction out of him. The result? Olise remains completely stoic, gives this microscopic, barely visible smile for exactly half a second, and then immediately goes right back to looking completely unimpressed. Classic.
Today, his market valuation has skyrocketed into that ultra-elite tier of €100 million. He is undeniably one of the most dangerous and effective wingers on the planet right now. Yet, despite the massive price tag, the fame, the insane pressure, his facial expressions and monosyllabic press conferences remain completely unchanged. The mystery persists.
So, the crucial point is this. Why is he like this? Are we looking at some carefully curated image for social media? Is it a cold, calculated marketing gimmick just designed to make him stand out? Well, after analyzing his entire journey, the answer is a definitive no. This facade has absolutely nothing artificial about it.
The key to decoding Michael Olise's behavior is impassivity. It's not a PR stunt. It's not a pose. It's a shield. A deeply ingrained psychological survival mechanism. It comes directly from that 14-year-old boy who was expelled, rejected, and forced to mail out physical DVDs just to survive in the sport he loved. He walked through absolute nothingness, and it changed him permanently.
To borrow a really powerful insight from our research, it's not cynicism, it's survival. When you hit rock bottom like that at such a formative age, you permanently stop playing for the crowd. You stop playing for the cameras, the fans, or the spectacle of it all. You strip away all that noise, and you start playing entirely for yourself, purely to prove your own worth. Let's see how this builds his actual style of play, because this indestructible mental armor translates directly onto the pitch. Yes, he has that devastating Arjen Robben-esque finishing ability on his left foot, for sure. But his real superpower is his indestructible internal motivation, coupled with a total indifference to external opinions. It's this massive, unshakable confidence that's completely stripped of ego. It allows him to step up in the highest-stakes football matches on earth and play as calmly as if the stadium were completely empty. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to turn this around on you for a second. Michael Olise took his greatest trauma and rejection and forged it into an impenetrable psychological shield. Instead of breaking, he muted the noise of the world to focus purely on his craft. So, ask yourself, what could you achieve in your own life if you could completely ignore the judgment of others? Keep that thought with you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.